Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Development and Property Committee for April the 12th. It's great to be live once again, although, as I just said a few minutes ago, it's like the first day of going to work. It really is a strange atmosphere here. I'll call the meeting to order. And the first item is the land acknowledgement, and I'd like to ask Councillor Lynch to read the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Chair. As we gather this afternoon, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lynch. Roll call has been taken, Evelyn?
Yes, and we have quorum. Thanks.
And we have a quorum. Yes. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any member wish to disclose any pecuniary interest in any of the matters before us today? Having seen none, I need an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on March the 8th as distributed. Any errors or omissions to the minutes distributed? Seeing none, then I need a motion to accept the minutes, please. Kathy, seconded by Jeb. All in favor? It is carried. Delegations at this time? None. We'll go to Development and Property, which starts on page 3. Craig, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see everybody in person, most of everybody, and Councillor Ema, of course, online. I have three items in the information package, and I'll run through them, and perhaps item number 1, Mr. Foss will address, and we'll have him address as we go back through the report. So again, item number 1 is the unaudited financial statements for 2021, and I'll push that aside until Mr. Foss addresses at the review period. Item number 2 is about the twinning exercise with Renfrewshire. Renfrewshire, of course, is very keen to have us start working together with the County of Renfrew on exercises of matters of interest in culture, business, economic development, and education. So at some point over the last few months, with the chair of DMP, we have made connections with the Upper Ottawa Valley Chamber of Commerce, who are very, very interested in a collaborative efforts with the chamber in Renfrewshire. There are several chambers, including the town of Paisley, and surrounding regions. So what the chamber is looking to do in support, or with support from the County of Renfrew, is a twinning trip with businesses and a speed dating type of situation where we've been involved before, where businesses from the Ottawa Valley will make their way to Scotland over the next year or so. We don't have dates on that because we're still doing a survey of interested businesses on a matching program of discovery. So again, we'll work on those details, and I know the chair wishes to speak to that when we go back through the report. Item number 3 is about the Building Broadband Faster Act 2021. So what is attached in your agenda packages is a letter from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, and that letter addresses a number of concerns they have with the Act and a number of points that were not addressed in the Act, and they wish to have those addressed as it moves forward through the system. I know probably the warden would like to address this as part of her role with EOWC, but you'll note it's a lot to do with the process has not been quite tweaked enough, in their opinion, as is mine, to allow broadband to actually increase at a faster pace in the province of Ontario. So again, that letter is there for your information. So before we go back to, before we hit resolutions, Chair, I would suggest going back through the report and we'll address resolutions on their own.
Okay, fine. We'll go back to item number 1. Jeff, did you want to speak to us a little bit on item number 1, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Development and Property Committee. So at this time of the year, we bring forward, we call them draft and unaudited financial statements to each of the committees, reporting up through to County Council. And so the Development and Property Committee unaudited and draft financial statements are included in your package. It is always our intention to bring back to you consolidated financial statements for the County of Renfrew in the month of June, but our auditors have completed their work. They've left the building, so to speak, and the next time that you see them, they will be bringing forward the auditor's report. Before they left, they did indicate to myself that they didn't anticipate any changes to the statements that are before you, so we feel very comfortable in presenting draft financial statements for your review. You'll see at the bottom of the report, in total, all of the departments that report up and through to the Development and Property Committee we're recognizing a surplus or an under budget position of $373,000, and really there are two departments that this is coming forward from. One is the Planning Department, and the other is this Property Department for the County Administration Building. So just really a couple of notes on the financial statements. The County Administration Building, or Property-Pembroke Admin, like all departments, we did experience some COVID-related expenditures for this building, as well as for multiple departments across the county of Renfrew. For this particular department, there were $42,474 in COVID-related expenses throughout the year. And of course, a little bit farther down on that financial statement, you'll see provincial revenue one time, which is our, our revenue account, where we bring into income any offsetting revenue of $42,474. I can again report to this committee that the ratepayers for the County of Renfrew, through their property tax bills, will have no incremental cost because of COVID mitigation strategies here at the County of Renfrew. We were able to utilize both federal and provincial government subsidies available to us to offset all expenditures. So we have no net costs on the property tax bill because of COVID-19 in the year 2021. That is similar to the year of 2020. So that's really good news for us to report. Not to say that we did not experience COVID-related expenditures. In total, across all departments, total COVID costs were $9,321,000. That was offset by provincial government subsidies of $7.4 million, as well as the federal Safe Start program of $640,000. And in between, for a COVID mitigation strategy, our Renfrew County VTAC clinic had expenditures of about $1.45 million, but we have an agreement or an arrangement through Armpraya Regional Health where we are billing that organization, who in turn is billing the province for all of our costs related to the VTAC program. And so not to say that we don't have COVID-related expenditures, but they are all offset by senior level government subsidies. In the county admin building department, if you will, the really big news I'd like to share with you is under the capital component, and you'll see a fairly large budget item in yellow for capital of $2,409,000 and some offsetting revenues, some coming from TCA TCA funded by COVID of $40,729, and a little bit farther down, also in one of the yellow accounts, transfer from reserves of $2,368,000. And essentially what you're looking at is the end of the service delivery improvement project. So this renovation that took place for this building over the last number of years, and certainly through the COVID pandemic period, we've now come to the end of this process. The total capitalized cost of all of our renovations for this building, $4,855,000. In addition to that project, if you will, we have two add-on components that were not really envisioned when we first entered into this project. The first is the telephone system, and what we had to do really was, because we closed 5 offices throughout the Pembroke area and moved all of those staff in here, we had to enhance our internal telephone system in order to accommodate all of the new staff that moved in here. So that was a $63,000 bill, And associated with that is really the addition of a PA system that is active throughout the facility at $10,094. So the total capital cost of the SDIP renovation, including those two items, the PA system and the phone system, $4,929,000. So how did we finance that? Well, similar to the budget workshop presentation and our original presentation for our business plan for this building, we had a number of funding sources. Originally, Municipal Affairs gave us a modernization grant of $725,000, but we were also very fortunate to be able to submit funding requests through childcare and Ontario Works. So within that administration budget, we requested that they include renovation costs in both of those budget areas for 2020 and for 2021 to assist us in the fit up primarily of the furniture and equipment that was going into this building to accommodate the transition of childcare and Ontario Work staff into this building. So in 2020, we had contributions from an early on program of $50,000, the Ontario Works division, if you will, of $400,000, childcare of $174,000, and then we also were able to utilize some COVID subsidies throughout the building for plexiglass, not only in council chambers, but also in our registration areas throughout the building. Anywhere that you see plexiglass, in total $40,728. That includes the courtroom area as well. And so we were able to utilize COVID subsidy to offset the cost of all of the plexiglass in the renovation project. So by utilizing municipal modernization, some of the COVID-related subsidies, as well as some of the contributions through Ontario Works and Childcare, our net cost that we had to subsidize or finance was $3,089,000. And if you'll recall from the budget workshop, we have a plan in place through annual efficiencies. In 2021, we are going to repay this building reserve where we extracted $3,089,000. In 2021, we are returning $169,000 back to that reserve. That's exactly the same number that you saw at the budget workshop in January. And then in each year from 2020 through to 2027, we will return $467,000 to that building reserve, so that by 2028, about partway through the year, about June of 2028, this renovation is fully financed through the efficiencies or the savings in this plan. So from 2028 onward, the County of Renfrew will realize about $446,000 in total savings on an annual basis. So that's really, really good news. That is the summary really of the service delivery improvement plan. I think we're, from a staff point of view, we're very pleased to have presented you a business plan and a budget, and now seeing the end of that whole process where in fact those savings were real, and in the 7-year period we will fully repay this this investment. So just returning back to the financial statements, then moving on past the county admin building, Renfrew County Place, we're reflecting here a net $0 change from budget. We did have more savings than that within the Renfrew County Place building, and we returned those back to the building reserve fund through the very bottom line item, a transfer to reserve of $129,000 versus our budget of $48,000. Next to that, we have the base stations. Again, the property department really constructed all of our paramedic stations throughout the county of Renfrew, and those stations are being, the capital component is being repaid through a lease agreement. We have a 15, a 20, and I think a 25-year lease agreement with a variety of different base stations, and so that is the repayment plan, so that like this building, the capital component will be fully repaid over a period of time. Our prior office, likewise, at 87 McGonigal Street, we have lease agreements in place with Childcare, Ontario Works, and the Renfrew County Housing Corporation, and over a period of time, again, the business plan is that the capital cost of renovating that facility will be repaid through leases to those three tenants. Similarly, in Renfrew, the new OPP headquarters, we continue along the path of a 15-year plan where we will not only have that building fully paid off by the capital repayment plan with the lease that we have with Infrastructure Ontario for the OPP building, but we're able to generate about $60,000 a year in surplus dollars that is also going back into a building reserve fund so that in 15 years' time, we should have a significant amount of money available to the folks in the property department to ensure that that building is maintained on a go-forward basis. I'm just going back down through my list. Within the forestry department, although we are reflecting a $0 variance between budget and actual, you will note that there was significantly more timber revenue realized in 2021, $224,000 versus a budget of $180,000, so roughly $44,000 in additional revenue. And in keeping with the forestry management plan, we are returning those surplus dollars to the reforestation reserve for future purposes that are restricted to forestry and forestry management activities at the County of Renfrew. The Trails Division also had a very good year. Lots of activity in the trails area, and about 4 line items down from the from the total of $290,656 spent in 2021. You'll see Algonquin Trail development at $1,387,000. That's significantly above our budget of $248,000, and of course, that is related to the resolution that County Council passed after the budget was adopted, where we agreed to spend up to $2 million to complete a significant number of portions of the trail, and that the financing of this would come from a combination. We would pull the money we needed from reserves and then repay those reserves as a first charge for any County of Renfrew surplus that we realized in the financial year 2021 and in future years. We were also very fortunate in 2021 to receive $405,000 from the Canada Community Revitalization Fund to contribute toward this work that was being done on the trail in 2021. So the net cost to the County of Renfrew was really the difference between our budget of $248,000 and what we spent at $1.3 million, less the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. So roughly $734,000 was the net additional cost that we spent on the trail that was not budgeted and did not come from a provincial or federal grant. So what we had to do was borrow that money from our reserves in accordance with the resolution, but unfortunately we were unable in 2021 to repay any of that amount that we borrowed. The County of Renfrew in 2021 will realize a municipal deficit and not a municipal surplus, and so we are unable to contribute any money back to that reserve fund. The resolution is ongoing. It's an evergreen resolution, if you will, and so again in 2022, any surplus dollars at the end of the year will be dedicated as a first charge to repaying the money on this 2021 activities. We also have approved additional work in 2022 and then in the 2022 budget where we will again borrow money from reserves to complete the trail, the northern section of the trail, if you will, and then the repayment of that money will come for future County of Renfrew surpluses. The GIS department follows next, and it's very, very close to budget at $606 under. And, sorry, I've just got to go a couple of pages in my sheet. Economic development would be next at roughly $742 over budget in 2021. You'll note at the bottom of the economic development department budget some activity related to Ontario Winter Games. Committee will recall in 2021 we did have a budget, seed money if you will, for any expenditures that we might incur before we began to receive provincial government subsidies related to the Ontario Winter Games. And the resolution in 2021 that accompanied that stated that any funds that we did not need to use, that we would transfer those into an Ontario Winter Game Reserve at the end of 2021 to be used for 2022. Happy to say that we did have expenditures of about $85,000 in 2021, but all of those expenditures were covered by provincial subsidy, so we were able to transfer the entirety of the $200,000 into an Ontario Winter Games Reserve. That money is available for our committee when the Ontario Winter Games project begins to move forward. If we don't have sufficient provincial subsidy, we still have those $200,000 dedicated to this purpose. Enterprise Renfrew County is next, so we have a base program as well as summer company and starter company, and all of that coming in right on budget for 2021. Ottawa Valley Tourist Association is next, and you'll see that we have significant underspending in salaries and benefits. We were not fully staffed throughout the year in 2021. Our agreement, our 5-year agreement with the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association essentially says that we increase our commitment to them on an annual basis using the same target that County Council sets for operating expenditures for all departments, which was 2.5% as an increase in 2021. And in fact, if we're not spending all of those dollars on salaries and benefits, we maintain that commitment to that organization, and we transfer any balance remaining to them as a cash contribution or a direct contribution to the tourist organization. We do that primarily to ensure that our other partner, the City of Pembroke, also pays their share or their commitment to the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association, and that's based on a proportionate cost-sharing agreement based on weighted CVA. And finally, you'll see a $169,000 surplus against budget for the planning department. The planning department experienced higher than anticipated revenues in severance applications, subdivision applications, service charges, and were slightly below budget in their salaries and benefits, and that's really the nature of where those savings are coming from. So, Mr. Chair, with that, a very quick overview of all of the departments reporting through to this committee. In total, 347.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate the very in-depth review of the statements. I'll open it up for any questions of members of committee with regards to the first item and the comments made by our very effective treasurer. Having seen none, thank you. Then we'll go on to item number 2. Maybe I could throw my 2 cents worth in there in terms of the twinning exercise. I did put together a bit of a group, including the president of the Chamber of Commerce in the Upper Ottawa Valley, the executive director of the Chamber, one of their board members. There was a gentleman also on there who's a travel agent that looks after all of the Chamber's trips, for example, to China and to Australia, to New Zealand, and I think they're going to Iceland, etc., etc. There was the economic development staff from the county, including Craig and Alistair and myself, and we had a general discussion about the opportunities that might be there from a business-to-business point of view, because that's one of the pillars that was put forth. But I also talked a little bit about the others, the sports and the education and the culture between the two communities. I also made it clear that, and one of the things that they're doing, this is Renfrew County that signed an agreement with Renfrewshire, and it's more than the Upper Ottawa Valley Chamber of Commerce. And I asked if the chamber would get in touch with the other chambers of commerce within Renfrew County. For example, Arnprior has a chamber, as does Renfrew, to bring the whole of Renfrewshire, or Renfrew County into the environment. And that was a commitment that the Chamber of Commerce said that they would take on to find out if there was any ideas of any thoughts of being part of this. I think the meeting was very upbeat and very enthusiastic about opportunities. Now, whether it says here something about 2022 and early 20, whether that could happen or not, I don't know. But there was some marching orders, so to speak, that the group said that they would take and come back to us, including how much would it cost to just sort of pop over there and speak to the group. So it's very, very in its infancy at this point in time, but nonetheless, the seed has been sown to take it to the next step. And we agreed to meet, I think, in another week or so, if they had any information, or if they could all get together and say, I think we'd like to have another chat about where we're going on that. So it was good to see that move forward at this point in time. I don't know if, Alistair, you had anything out of that meeting, but I think we've covered it pretty well. So I think we had a fair cross-section from the business point of view, but there's other things there, the schools, the culture, the education. I was quite surprised. We played the video, and I was quite surprised when I saw it again. You pick up something every time you do, that they actually play a lot of hockey over in Scotland, where they do that, I have no idea, because I don't know of any ice rink in Scotland, but obviously, there might be an opportunity for something like that through the school system or whatever it might be, cultural or otherwise. So I think, as I say, there was very upbeat and very enthusiastic about the possibilities of doing something two ways, but one for us going to that environment and for them coming this way as well. I think the Eganville leader did an excellent job of highlighting that presentation that was made at County Council. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out of it. Any questions on 2? Jeb.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, it sounded like you had a pretty good get together. It was the first one, I assume. Yeah. I know within the with the schools they have student exchange programs. I don't know if they do that in exchange with Scotland, but possibly that could be an opportunity there too. Thank you.
Well, certainly that would be something I'd want to make sure that the school system would be involved in that, or at least given the opportunity to take a look at that. I have to tell you, as something else, I received a call from the province of Ontario suggesting that it would be a good idea if somebody from the province may sit on that group in terms of perhaps listening to what we have to say, which is pretty nice to see that happen. So it's sort of moving forward a little bit and as the warden said, he's going to be given to Bob Sweet, and he'll not let the grass grow underneath his feet. So I'll need to start cutting the grass a little bit. So anyway, we'll keep you abreast of what's happening if in fact anything more comes from this, but I'm sure it will. Okay. Further on 2. Then we'll go to item number 3, building broadband faster. Anyone wish to talk? Warden, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the letter says it all. Just to acknowledge that EORN was not successful with its GIG project to be a part of the Building Better Broadband and Connecting Ontario. But EORN has always said to the province that it will be watching to ensure that the residents, and particularly residents of Eastern Ontario, get broadband. So this is just part of the process, just identifying some issues that EORN sees as probably not going to be as effective as the province had hoped. And we're just hoping that our comments will be received in the way that they were intended. However, as of today, we have not received a response.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to say, I think we all experience what's happening in many areas within the county of Renfrew, people coming from afar or away from the larger urban areas that have that level of service and just assume it's everywhere. And unfortunately, it's not. And I think that's an important issue that we've got to deal with, because there's an expectation that what they received in certain larger urban centres is just automatically here in Renfrew County. And that's something that is not the case. And I wouldn't like to see that being a black mark, so to speak, for anyone wanting to come into this area, because I get calls. What's happening with I can't connect properly to the internet. That's because we just don't have the capacity here in Renfrew County. So to the warden and to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and EORN, keep up the work, because it's absolutely essential and needed here in Renfrew County. Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. I find it's very frustrating also. We have folks up at our end in the Laurentian Hills and that have moved out of the urban areas and wanted more of the country style along the Ottawa River, but they have some of them have moved back to the cities, and others have kept their place and set up office elsewhere. So it was a little disappointing on their part, and it's disappointing for everybody basically in Eastern Ontario here. So hopefully we'll get some more movement on that, and people will be able to do their business from home, as it seems to be the thing to be doing now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Peter with the hand up there. Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and through you to the warden. I think both letters were very well done. They outline the concerns most people have. I should note the 10 and 15 day turnaround. It's unreasonable, and I think the letters captured that very well. I would suggest in the future that when there is some conversation about stakeholders, that MTO be included and the province, because some of the highways with their 90-foot or 120-foot right of ways would make excellent areas to lay fiber to put down a corridor for hubs to go off of. And we've raised it with the ministry a couple of times in the past, and they seem to be reluctant and want, but at the same breath suggest that municipalities should be ready to throw their assets into the pool without compensation or without any real thought. So I would encourage ERN and the warden in conversations with the province to make suggestions about other ministries that have land that could accommodate infrastructure for broadband and cells going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Further on 3. Then we'll go to the departmental capacity review planning. There's a resolution there. Craig?
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the recommendations that the Development and Property Committee recommend the County Council direct staff to review the complement of Planning Division staff, along with a forecast of planning applications, including general inquiries, and bring a report back to Committee and Council, and further that business cases for additional resources, if identified as being required, are brought forward at the same time. And Chair, by the way of a background, the background is, and we've heard this, and we continue to hear it, and you'll hear more in Mr. Howarth's report later today, is the planning department, while we've added capacity, and you've heard us make that business case earlier or later last year, that on average we're receiving 1 and 1.5 planning or general inquiries a day while completing 1 a day. So we're treading water. We're not getting ahead. And it's the challenges of planning are such that things that happened 10 years ago when we had the current capacity have changed incrementally either from new PPS rules or from new rules externally to just the overall development of lands that may not be as suitable as they once were in the county of Renfrew. The good lands, I guess, are all gone, and the harder lands are now being developed. So it just creates a much more stress, if you will, on the system to create planning reports and get them out in a timely fashion for the development of the county and for all your municipalities. So as we review this, and this recommendation is saying that, is allow us a month or two to really get down into the weeds of what we require. There are stress points in GIS as well that we've been speaking about and bringing new GIS applications forward. So if we can look at both GIS, as in this case, the planning side of GIS, and the planning division as a whole, and allow us to bring back a report that I guess this is giving you fair warning that we're reviewing our staff complement and will likely be recommending some increase in some type of capacity role, and what that role will look like will be defined over the next couple months, sir.
Thank you for that. Comments before I ask for a mover and seconder for the resolution. Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair, and through you to Mr. Kelly. I saw this recommendation, and then I looked at Mr. Howard's report, and there's no question that we're going to need additional staff to meet the obligations and the expectations of our municipalities that use our planning department. Is it really going to take 2 months to come back? Because I don't think there's a question. I think there's a need, and also when I looked at Bruce's report too, it indicates there's a lot of planning or planner positions out there. I'd like to see the County of Renfrew get in the queue for people who may be interested in applying sooner rather than later.
Mr. Kelly.
And through you, Chair, to the Warden, it is hoped that we will do it in less than 2 months. That puts us into June, and it'd be nice to bring it back in May. The process, of course, is going to County Council and then bringing back, a couple weeks after that to committee in a short period of time. We're working on it, trying to determine really what the next steps are for us to do. Your point is well taken. There are plenty of planning jobs out there. We're going to be in a competition for those positions, so we need to get in sooner than later. It'd be nice to even to get into the cohort of graduates looking to graduate over the next semester or not. So we will endeavor to do it quicker, but we just want to make sure we're getting what we need as we move forward.
Jeb?
Thank you, Chair. I think the writing was on the wall when we started to take on more from the various municipalities. I'm not sure if we knew what the extent was, and I think there's 12 municipalities now that are being taken care of through the county. So, and I think there's a bit of an increase also. So I have no issues with this whatsoever. So I'll be more than happy to support it.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. And I'm hopeful that the report will also make note of the just some of the timelines. If we can get a little bit of a chart that the timelines that our planners work with on that cause pressure through the Planning Act and other acts, because I think we need to educate ourselves a little bit, and maybe some of the public that's viewing or paying attention to our reports, because I don't think we fully understand the pressures that those put on in terms of having to turn things around and the need to have public meetings at a certain time, and then the tight timeline behind the public meeting to the final report. So if the report could be a little more generous with that information, I think it would be helpful, because I think we need to educate ourselves a bit about the pressures at the same time as we understand the volume of work. Thank you. And if I could add too, is it possible? I don't know and perhaps Mr. Howard can answer this. I don't know that. Is there a work component to getting where there's a placement where a prospective planner as part of their education is placed for 6 months or something, or is there an intern system that we could turn to and then maybe use those placements to then make job offers in the future? Thank you.
Craig.
Thank you, Chair, and to the council. So, council may recall, or committee may recall, we had a business case for an internship program, paid internship program. It's actually part of the planning SDR that we did a couple years ago. That became a financial pressure point for us, unfortunately, and perhaps something that your director may have missed in the budget process. For this year, we made instead a business case to hire somebody full-time. I'm happy that candidate is actually in the back of the room today and is going to submit a report later today. So we did not bring an intern in this period. There was another component to internships, which we were very successful with. Alex Benzie, who has now joined us, and she's working out very well, obviously, is the training that goes into an intern is quite extensive. And this year, with all the zoning bylaws that Mr. Howarth and his team are doing, plus all the other things going on, to train somebody and then lose them after 4 months, again, was felt that it'd be better efforts would be going into somebody full-time than it was an actual intern for this 2022 year. But we will, again, re-examine what internship is. If there's a free intern, but obviously, I would hate to take a free intern because their work is worth so much more than free. But in any case, we'll review the internship program once again and bring it forward.
Thank you. Father, on item number 4, before I ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Jeb, do you want to move it? Moved by Jeb then, and seconded by Kathy? Is there no further discussion? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favour? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you. With that, then we'll go to Alistair Baird, page 17, the Economic Development Report. Alistair?
Thanks, Chair.
Yours.
Good afternoon, committee. Economic development under information is our Renfrew County, our Agricultural Economic Development Committee. And just that there was a recent meeting and a lot going on. And a reminder that Councillor David Benefit is the County Council liaison or rep to this committee. One was that our Taste of the Valley events, which are, and I can't recall if we're in year 50, anyway, we're more than a decade into some very successful events. 2022, we're going to be back to a normal year. And really, we're just waiting for the final sort of municipal sign on to hosting these events that's required. And then we'll be going more public with them. One that we could go ahead and tell you about is a newer, more unique one, which is Township of Laurentian Valley wanting to do a Christmas market, which is terrific, and you see the dates there. The next item is very exciting, and it's that we have some outside investors have linked up with a resident farmer and agribusiness leader, and looking at putting in a value-added processing for grain and oilseed storage and drying. So if you drive past Miller's just this side of Cobden, imagine a facility like that or bigger. We're not sure yet, but it would be a second one of those where a better service to all the cash croppers in the county. It keeps more grain and oilseeds here that can sometimes go back to become feed through the off season. And it will allow our producers to basically to capture more value when they are sending it down to the processing plants in Southern Ontario and exporting. So very exciting, and Dave Wybu, our business development officer, working closely with the industry group on that. Farms Open is a new event in the countryside, and I'm not supposed to do this, but we've cast our minds back to, now I've hazed on it. What was our big agri day? Rural Ramble. Rural Ramble was very successful, but it eventually faded away. This is a farm group starting it up again, Farms Open. And so you have a date, Sunday, the September 18th, and this is the first of an annual, we hope, and might spread to maybe more weekends or additional days. On the next page is our fourth item, which is this is an interesting one that will come back to committee probably. We have two agri-business committees out there. One is our Agricultural Economic Development Committee, which has been meeting regularly for many years and addresses economic development specifically. The others are Agricultural Leadership Advisory Committee. That committee really had one purpose, which was to assemble the funding needs of our many farm organizations annually for county council. These groups share many members nowadays. It's the same people on 2 different committees. The Leadership Advisory Committee really didn't have much to do for much of the year, and and the thought from the group was to integrate the 2 committees and end up with just one group. It certainly makes good sense, and so Business Development Officer Waibu has been creating a terms of reference that will bring the 2 committees together. Once it's through their review and approval, it'll come back to this committee. Item number 2 is about the SAO, the Société Économique de l'Ontario. We did a virtual career fair with that group. It was aimed, of course, at Francophone workers, the workforce, and many of them from overseas. Many of them, of course, are French, English, fully bilingual, and then 3rd and 4th languages. It was an interesting opportunity. Jackie Stott, David Waibu, and myself represented the county, and it linked people really across Canada who are landed in Canada and seeking work. And you see that it was Manitoba, Saskatchewan, BC, and Ontario. Item 3 is about our LIP, our Local Immigration Partnership. Again, another virtual career fair we did. That one was aimed very much at the healthcare sector. And so while the economic development staff really represented opportunities generally, we also had our Director of Care at Miramichi Lodge, and that's Jennifer White, participated, hoping to recruit people into our long-term care homes. And Greg Belmore from Human Resources and Amanda Nesbitt from our Human Resources also represent the interests of the county specifically for our vacancies. Item 4 is about Industry Day at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories up at Chalk River Labs. And again, Business Development Officer Waibu has been working on that. We participated in that for about 7 years now at the Chalk River site. And you see the date there, Thursday, June 2nd. Interesting this year is it'll be right at the plant gate site at their new timber frame logistics center, if you will, and free booth space for any of our businesses that wish to exhibit to the nuclear labs themselves, but also to many of the Canadian nuclear industry players who come to this event. Item 5 is Chalk River Laboratories again, just that Councillor Lynch, of course, is on the Chalk River Laboratories Environmental Stewardship Committee, and he had attended a recent meeting on March 24th, and his notes are attached on page 22 to 24 from that meeting. Item 6 is the Ottawa Spring Wedding Show. Life is returning to normal. Trade shows, consumer shows are coming back on, and Jackie Stott, our Economic Development Coordinator, has attended that. She's much better at a wedding show than I am, or Mr. Waibu, and Jackie's very keen and has been running these shows for a number of years. And very busy show, 4,000 brides. Now, it's not brides, it's brides-to-be, my error, friends and relatives. And again, Jackie's created a listing of the many 112 businesses that specifically service the wedding sector here, from host sites to flowers to photographers. The next item is number 7. It's a resolution, Chair. Shall I read the recommendation first?
Well, let's just stop there, and I'll go through the information items first, and then we'll come back to your resolution. Okay, Alistair?
Thanks.
Okay. With that, we'll go back to item number 1 on your agenda package. 1, and in particular 1A. Any comments on 1A? 1B? 1C? And 1D. Oops, sorry, Peter. Sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead. Which one?
That's okay. Thank you. Through you to Alistair, Chair. Is CA the farms open? Is that a farm gate retail opportunity for people when they're going around, or is it to come in the gate and then tour the operation, or is it a combination? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. Through you to committee. Farms Open is an opportunity for citizens to visit the farms, and then to the extent that that particular farm operator will allow them to see the operation, there's definitely a desire for most of the participating farmers to show as much as they can. So yeah, it'll be sales of products from that farm and surrounding producers, and then a tour of how our various types of farms operate as an educational aspect as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Alistair. Further, Peter? No? Comfortable? Okay. 1D. Seeing nothing, then item number 2. Item number 3. Item number 4. Item number 5. And item number 6. I'm glad you put in there the brides to be. I think that's important. Anyhow, item number 6. With that, then go to your resolutions.
Thanks, Chair. And resolution item number 7, it's the nuclear energy omission from the Federal Green Bond Framework Funds Program. And maybe background is a little bit is the Green Bond Framework is a program and plan by the federal government to fund clean energy, green energy, non-greenhouse gas emitting, and pollution mitigation investments. So research and development, investments in technology, applications of technology, very broad sector. And I'm going to sort of focus on the non-greenhouse gas emitting and the nuclear energy being omitted from this. And the real two interesting angles to this. One is one of the highest volume potential sources of non-greenhouse gas emitting electrical energy and thermal energy as well is nuclear power. It's proven that in Ontario, where it helped Ontario. It would not have happened that Ontario could get off coal power if it wasn't for nuclear energy. Our fleet is about 61% annually of electricity production. So nuclear energy is being emitted from that as we electrify our economies, industry, transportation, the long-range plans, and even space heating. So that's one of the things. And the second aspect that certainly the nuclear industry sector found disheartening was that nuclear energy was grouped in with alcohol, firearms, gambling, production of tobacco products, and alcoholic beverages. Not that I've got something against all of those, but the orientation is, and fossil fuels, and arms. So the clustering of our peaceful applications of nuclear energy pioneered here in the county of Renfrew, disheartening. So the recommendation committee is that the Development of Property Committee recommend to County Council that the Warden write a letter to the Honourable Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, calling for the inclusion of nuclear energy in the Green Bond Framework. Chair, that's the resolution and background.
Thank you very much. I'll open that up before I ask for a resolution for any comments. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. As previously mentioned by Alistair, we attended the first environmental meeting that I've been to. The big thing I took out of that in the future with these nuclear, there's no waste. There's no water going into the environmental. The heating or cooling is by helium, which dissipates, goes in another container, and then is reused. So there's no environmental concern with the new ones that are coming. And when you vision a flashlight, the battery in your flashlight is the nuclear. When it's run out of steam, we'll say, they simply lift the battery out, put a new one in, and it's taken to a storage unit, which I thought was outstanding, which goes along with the nuclear framework. And I heard Prime Minister Trudeau last night, I guess, was saying that nuclear power is definitely on the grid for saving for green energy. So I fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further comments? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder to accept the resolution, please. Dan, seconded by Jeb. No further discussion. I'll call then for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed of any? It is carried. Thank you very much. Then we will go to the OVTA. Alistair, please.
Thanks, Chair. And if I can, I'm going to quote Councillor Lynch, just a last note on our ECDEV report. Medellina, who are the new company operating in the Sandvik previously empty Sandvik factory in Arnprior, are now selling product, exporting to the United States, and have sold 3 of their portable homes to another new business operating in the county now. So very exciting news on the manufacturing front that was not in the report. Sorry. OVTA, page 25. the annual general meeting and conference and the Tourism Awards. And really, it's a save the date notice for committee. It's Tuesday, April 26th. It's going to be a fully virtual meeting, so very easy to attend. Great chance to meet the tourism industry as they, the first hit and hardest hit sector, emerge from COVID, and the Tourism Awards especially. Item 2 is about a program we're working on with Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization, our regional tourist organization, leveraging Green Step solutions to get our tourism business certified as green, and it helps in the marketing and competitiveness for our sector. And item 3, actually, major tourism funding announcement. Oh, there, I have it out of order, sorry. Item 3, yeah, our FAM tour. We have a familiarization tour for, again, businesses coming back, international tour operators. So very exciting. We'll be hosting them here in late May, and it's while they attend the Rendezvous event in Toronto. And they'll be visiting Madawaska Canoe Center and Spectacle Lake Lodge. The very interesting is the grid there, the chart of where these particular tourism operators are coming from. You'll see the first 4 from Canada. So those are businesses that host international travelers, largely provide services or make arrangements for them. And then the final 6 are the travel tour company representatives from those various countries of France, Mexico, Japan, Netherlands, the UK, and South Korea. So it'll be very, very exciting to make sure we stay on the map for international travel. Item 4 is an information piece that we, the OBTA, will be a delegation to our partner, the City of Pembroke, on Tuesday, May 3rd. President Chris Melmoth will present our 2021 year and 2022, and we'll also seek approval of our detailed budget from them at that time. Item 5 is just that there's a major tourism funding announcement, and it is very major, and you'll see on page 28 to 30 some of the details about it. So federal money going to be delivered through our regional tourist organization, Ontario's Highlands, and across the region that Ontario's Highlands services, which stretches out to Hastings County, it's up to $3 million for distribution. OTO is presently going through with our tourism staff at this time right now some of the plans for how the funds will be rolled out. And we'll hear more as that develops. Chair, that's the OBTA report.
Thank you very much. Item number 1 of the report. Questions or comments? Item number 2. Familiarization tour. Item number 3. Item number 4. Peter, which one? 4 or 3?
3, please. Just a quick
3.
question to Alistair. When I take a look at them, I don't see skiing or whitewater. Is that something that comes at a different time because it's more of a seasonal thing as opposed to tours?
Through you, Chair. So, and excuse me, I didn't quite hear you. Skiing and whitewater?
Yes, I don't see them unless they're part. Are they included in as a package in one of these tour operators?
Yeah. So this is largely aimed at the summer market, which is the high season even for the internationals. And MKC does present the whitewater, an introduction to the whitewater of the Ottawa Valley. And of course, all our information will be provided for all our operators to these people. The travel is very limited, and you can see they're just skirting the far west, if you will, of the Ottawa Valley and the county on this trip.
Thank you.
We had a similar group pre-COVID that actually spent about 3 days along the Ottawa River corridor a few years ago.
Okay. Further on 3. Then 4. And the metering, that we're going to hear further information how that allocation to the OTO is going to be rolled out, yeah, percentage-wise, or how much is going to end up with Ottawa Valley. Okay. Item number 5, comments or questions. Peter. 5?
Yes, Chair. Not to appear ungrateful, but I do note that east of Toronto, our numbers are consistently smaller than than the other ones from the west of Ontario. So I'm sure they'll spend their money wisely, but there seems to be a cutoff as soon as you get east of Toronto from, say, 5 million for Guelph down to 3 million when you get to Peterborough through RT08 and then the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. A comment or?
I could make one comment and to be careful, I'm not fully informed, but it's probably the breakdown would be largely based on the existing visitation numbers, and unfortunately our numbers are a little lower than some of the more densely visited and serviced areas, but yeah, we do notice.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept that.
Item number 5, further. With that, we will go to Enterprise Renfrew County.
Thanks, Chair. Page 31. Item number 1 is Starter Company Plus. So it's exciting that we continue to get a lot of entrepreneurs seeking our services, hundreds through this winter already, very directly. 52 of those entrepreneurs wish to participate in our Starter Company Plus program when we're permitted by the province of Ontario to really open it up for entry. We really have to wait until we have our agreement from them. We do anticipate that. Item 2 is a bylaw, and it's regarding Futurepreneur Canada. It's a relationship, an organization we've had a relationship with for 11 years, and it's I have a recommendation that the Development and Property Committee recommend that County Council pass a bylaw to enter into a program services agreement with Futurepreneur Canada to assist in delivery of programs in the community. That's in our county of Renfrew. Futurepreneur will provide coaching, mentoring, advice. They also provide, most importantly perhaps, loans to entrepreneurs. So we typically link every entrepreneur we consult with to Futurepreneur for additional information and for access to the loans program. And the agreement would state that when we do that and really promote Futurepreneur, then if any of our clients take a loan, then we will be compensated with cash contribution back to ERC. So it's a very easy relationship to work because we would reference people to them anyway, and if any of our businesses accept a loan, we'll be compensated to $400 or $200 per loan. Chair, that's and you'll see the bylaw, the agreement really on pages 32 to 37. And Chair, that is our ERC
Enterprise
report.
Renfrew County. Item number 1. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, you see the recommendation there. Any questions on this recommendation before I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder to accept the recommendation. Sheldon and Dan? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you. And now go to Forestry and GIS, and call on Jason, please.
Thanks, Chair. And Forestry GIS report can be found on page 39 of your committee package. But with your latitude, Chair, I wouldn't mind giving a shout out if I could. Some of you may or may not realize I was a bit of an accident 2 Saturdays ago, and I required some EMS support. So I'm very grateful to be here today. I'm very grateful for the support that Mike Nolan's crew gave to me during this incident. I'm very appreciative, and thank you very much to Mike Nolan, Matt Cruce, Michelle, and even Manager of Planning Services, Bruce Howarth. He was there when this incident occurred and helped very much. So again, thank you very much. And Chair, thank you for that latitude.
Well, certainly there's not a problem, and thank you for the comments that you made towards the EMS, but certainly more importantly, it's nice to see you here and that you've won the battle, so to speak, with the tree. It's not often that happens, but it's glad on behalf of our committee, good to have you back here in the saddle, so to speak, Jason, looking 100%.
Thank you very much, Chair.
There you go. The report is yours.
Page 39 of your committee package. First item for information is some interesting development on the carbon credit market. And you'll recall Committee directed staff to review a possible source of revenues through carbon credits and the use of the county forestry tracts. With the initial discussions we've had with Blue Source, there is potential. There is potential for revenues from a carbon credit program, but there could be and will be limitations, to block off this as forestry forever, almost 100 years plus, and also maybe managing the forestry a little differently than we do now. But that's for a later date. We'll bring Blue Source to this committee for review and possible recommendation to move forward. But again, there is potential for another revenue source besides managing the county forests as we do now. Item B is a good news story from the province of Ontario. You'll recall and may have heard this news of the 5-year forest biomass action plan that the province delivered and introduced. Again, looking beyond the typical sticks and timber we have for our forestry products, they're looking at biomass for like fuels, flavoring, 3D modeling, as you see in the report. So a good news story. There's always has been a limitation for low-end products. Mr. Keller, I'm sure will agree with that, looking for different solutions for these low-end products that we have a trouble to source out right now. So good news story for item 1B. Item 1C is just an update. We did plan for this during our 2022 budget deliberation. Not a large amount, but we did tender out some tree marking for one forestry tract in 2022 this year, about 23 hectares in area for red pine and spruce. And this gives some latitude for our county forester to remain doing things other than tree marking and preparing for a plan. So a good news story, and the prices are decent, and we always follow our policy of GAO1. Moving on to GIS activities. People may or may not realize that we do support the 911 civic addressing for local municipalities and ourselves. And one of these things that have kind of fallen by the wayside in the past number of years, specifically through COVID, is just a reminder to local municipalities about the 911 civic addressing process we give to local municipalities and maybe assist them if needed. So we will set up a meeting with the local municipalities to review this process and give them an update on the next generation 911 services that will be implemented in 2025. And the last item in my report, Chair, is just an update in weed inspection, another role that we do have here in our little division of forestry and GIS. I am the area weed inspector for Renfrew County, and you see in the attached page on page 41 is the letter to local municipalities informing them of my role of the local or the area weed inspector and wondering and inquiring of them if they have their own local weed inspector. So that's part and parcel of our process. And then you'll see some newspaper articles talking about that later on, probably in June and July. So, Chair, that's the Forestry GIS report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go back to the beginning of the report. Item number 1A. Any questions, Sheldon?
Thank you, Chair, and to staff. And I guess just as a comment, I read recently about this Blue Source and how they entered an agreement with another private land owner in Hastings area. I'll be interested to see how they think that keeping a forest for 100 years without managing it is actually beneficial, when in fact studies have shown in the Algonquin Park forests that proper forest management actually absorbs more carbon than an unmanaged forest. So I'll be interested to see what comes of that.
Thank you, Sheldon. Further on 1A.
Councillor Emo.
Jason? Sorry, Peter? I don't know. Okay, I'm all over the place. Okay, Peter.
Thank you. And my comments were similar to Sheldon's, and with a caveat of thank you, Jason, for bringing this forward, because I think we've been complaining about it or suggesting it as a solution. So if there's a way of marrying both of them together in terms of managing the forest properly and generating some funds for the natural capture of carbon, I think that's great. So thank you for pursuing it. I think we've been on this for about 7 years at least. So good work.
Thank you. Further on 1A. Jason.
If I may, Chair, through you to Councillor Keller. So we will still be managing the forests as we do now, but not in the same breadth and width as we do now. So it'd be a combination of a hybrid approach of managing what we can and where we can, but it'll be through the blue source and the carbon capture methodology that'll change. So that's why we'd want to bring in this blue source company, if we go this direction, to provide you, the elected, what would be done and not done through our management plan. But we will continue to manage it no matter what we do with carbon credits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Further on 1A. 1B. 1C. Item number 2. And item number 3. Thank you. With that, we will go to page 42. Kevin, please. Where's Kevin? There he is.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee.
Real property, or
The
real
manager's real estate report is found on page 42, and as you can see, it's very, very brief. I have, oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh. Okay. Manager real estate report is found on page 42, and I have one item. It's a very brief report. It's an information regarding a staffing update, and Erica Admansky, the supervisor of technical services, has resigned from her position effective April 22nd. Erica joined us January 31st, so she's been with us about 2.5 months, and we wish Erica all the best in her future endeavors. And we have started the recruitment process, and we remain optimistic that we have that position filled in the very near future. And Chair, that is my brief report for this month.
Thank you. Any comments on just item number 1? Okay, thank you. Then we will go on to page 43, and it's planning services. And we have Bruce, your committee report.
Thank you very much, Chair. There's a number of information items and a resolution and bylaw. The first information item is related to secondary dwellings and some of the work that county staff has been doing to promote the secondary dwelling. And with us today, we have Laura Jameson, who is a part of our planning team, and she's been with us since January. We're very lucky and happy to have her with our team. And she actually has a brief presentation, Chair, if it will be allowed to, on the secondary dwellings and some of the information that's available.
This is a PowerPoint that we're talking about, Laura? Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll just be giving a brief overview of secondary dwellings and some of the information that we're going to be providing to local municipalities regarding secondary dwellings and how they can be implemented across the county. The brochure can be found in Appendix Plan 1 as well of the package. A secondary dwelling is defined as a self-contained residential unit that has plumbing facilities. It's located on the same property as the primary dwelling. Can be lived in by the property owner, or it can be rented out, but it cannot be severed from the lot or sold. They're commonly known as secondary suites, basement apartments, or coach houses. They're a great option for providing an additional source of income and also providing the community with affordable housing opportunities. For properties on full municipal services, a secondary dwelling is permitted. It just needs to check with the local zoning bylaw for minimum standards for the dwelling unit, determining provisions such as unit area, minimum parking requirements, and servicing. On private services, if the lot is greater than 2 hectares, secondary dwellings are permitted, and they do not have to share the same water and septic as the primary residential dwelling. If the lot is greater than 0.8 hectares, but less than 2 hectares, the secondary dwelling is permitted, but it does have to share the same well and septic as the main residence. And if the lot is between 0.4 hectares and 0.8 hectares in area, a secondary dwelling may be considered. A minor variance application would need to be submitted through the township, and a hydrogeological study would need to be completed to determine if the dwelling can support, or if the septic and well can support an additional dwelling. Finally, there are some restrictions on secondary dwellings. Mobile homes and recreational vehicles are not considered secondary dwellings. They are not permitted on at-capacity lakes or near-capacity lakes. To have a secondary dwelling on waterfront property, there need to be additional studies performed to confirm that there will be no negative impacts on the water body. And finally, a secondary dwelling, again, may not be severed from the lot with the primary dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Just on that last slide, what is near capacity lake? What does near mean? Kilometer, 500 feet? What does that mean? Or
so a near capacity lake, it has to do with the amount of lots and population that are around the lake. It's designated at capacity. It's just under near or at capacity is, I mean, you're not allowed to create any new waterfront lots unless they meet certain criteria. And then the near capacity lakes have less restrictions than at capacity lakes, but we do not want to permit secondary dwellings on them.
Thank you for that clarity. Any questions of Laura's report? No? Okay, thank you. We'll go then to your report, number 2.
Great, thank you very much, Chair. Information item 2 is an update. Just over the last month, the County of Renfrew has final approved 2 plans of subdivision. One was in the town of Petawawa, the Shamus subdivision, and the second one was in Madawaska Valley, the Combermere Lodge subdivision and condominium, which creates 44 lots. Both of these have been, I'll say, long-standing files, so it's good to get these off our books and get some approvals in place and seeing those lots hit the market in the short order. Item number 3 relates to an appeal of consent applications that were received. Land Division Committee met back in February of 24th, and the committee approved a series of applications to create right-of-ways, and these consents were appealed by 2 different interested parties. So both on different opposing sides, but they both decided to appeal the decisions, which sort of went in the middle. So I guess it's a good decision if nobody's happy. But so that is going off to the OLT, and staff has forwarded those off in accordance with the Planning Act. Number 4 is a quick update on the zoning bylaw projects. So the county is currently undertaking the comprehensive review for 3 zoning bylaws. One's for Blanchard Valley, North Algonquin Wilberforce, and the Killaloe Haggerty Richards. These townships have all been provided with a first draft of the text and mapping for consideration, and we have been meeting with the local staff and some of the councils regarding these bylaws in an effort to move them forward. And I believe the Township of Blanchard Valley is going to be moving forward with scheduling their public meetings and open houses starting in late May, early June. So we're really getting a push to get these projects done ahead of the election cycle. Information item number 5 is official plan amendment number 11 update. Again, this is a long-standing file. I believe this file was actually started before I even started working at the county, dates back to 2006. So this was the approval that we received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, that they approved OPA 11, and that approval has triggered an appeal period, and provided that no appeals are received to that decision, then official plan amendment number 11 will be final and in place. Number 6 is another Whitewater information item. The township submitted an application to the County of Renfrew to amend the official plan, and this application proposes changes to the settlement boundary of Cobden and some of the land use designations in the area. And so staff will be processing this application in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and we'll be working with the township to hold a public meeting probably in June as well at the municipal office in the Township of Whitewater Region. Item number 7 is a third Whitewater Region information item. The Township of Whitewater Region did request some county assistance for a short period of time while the township planner is on leave. The county will be primarily responsible for preparing some of the notices under the Planning Act, and in addition, planning staff will be preparing consent reports, and those will be that will be considered at a committee of adjustment meeting on April 21st, 2022. So we are, in addition to our own county approvals, we're doing our best to support local townships when they've asked for that assistance. And then lastly, information item number 8 is also tied to the resolution and the bylaw that are later on in the report. But for the information item, this is a news release that was from the province of Ontario called "Ontario is Making It Easier to Buy a Home," and that news release is attached as Appendix Plan 2 on your committee package. And the gist of this news release is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has issued this release that they plan to act on the recommendations from the Housing Affordability Task Force. And if the committee will remember back at last committee, at the March committee, there was a series of 55 recommendations that was put forward by the task force, and the county had provided comments on each of those comments and recommendations, and those were forwarded on. And so the province is in the process of acting on some of those action items, and this was a news release. And I'll stop there, Chair, but just letting you know that resolution number 9 and the future bylaw are kind of related to this.
That's great. Thank you, Bruce. We've gone over number 1, secondary dwellings, but I'll ask again, are there any questions on item number 1? Item number 2. That also has taken a long while to get the Seamus subdivision in there. It's a rural subdivision, which is very unusual in my community. Mostly they're urban environments on sewer or water. So this is on private services, and that is unusual. We don't see many of those coming through the town. So for your help in making this happen, we appreciate that, getting that through, because it's been out there for quite some time. So thank you for that. On to 4, land division. Zoning bylaw update. Just by way of timeline, do you expect this to be wrapped up sometime later in June or July or something of that nature? Because if it is, I think that's quite remarkable of the planning department to get that type of thing through as fast as you can. Because it's just started sometime early this year, did it not?
Yeah, through Chair, yes, that's correct. We started the process in January working with the townships. So right now, Bonshire Valley, their goal is to have the bylaw approved by August to meet their timeline. And Killow, Haggerty, Richards, and Bruden, and North Algona, Wilberforce, we don't have a timeline for them yet. Whether they're going to be able to achieve approval this year is yet to, we're not sure yet. We're still working on those timelines, but the goal for Bonshire Valley is, yes, to have that approved by August.
Well, these municipalities must feel pleased about that, getting that through as fast as they can. Because there's another, 9 after that you have to do. So a lot of work ahead for you there, and that's another challenge with the planning department, isn't it, with the staffing. Item number 4. Item number 5. Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. It's nice to finally see this come to fruition, and thank you very much again to the planning department. I know it's been quite an ongoing battle here, an ongoing thing here, so it's nice to see it, like I say, come to an end, and hopefully without any appeals, we'll be on our way. So that is great news. Thank you very much for everything.
Item number 6. Back to Whitewater. No? Okay. Further on 6 from any member of the committee. Nothing. 7. Whitewater again. Item sub 7. Sorry, I can't see you over there. Warden, go ahead. Which one? Sorry?
Number 7, please.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm reading this and having listened to what both Craig and Bruce have said, and I sympathize with the Township of Whitewater Region not having a planner for 8 weeks. But are we really able to take our staff that we seem to be, we don't have enough staff as it is to deal with the workload that is presented at the at the county level in our planning department and take a staff person or whoever, or the time or the hours away from our planning department for an 8-week period for another municipality, with all due respect to Whitewater's needs.
That's a fair question. Over to Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. To you, Warden. It's absolutely a challenge, and it does take away resources that would have been otherwise focused on County of Renfrew approvals, and it is a level of support that we're trying to do our best to provide to our local townships to provide that assistance. It's something that we have historically done for other municipalities, such as the town of Renfrew when they were missing a planner. We've also helped out with Greater Madawaska and also the town of Arnprior at different points. So we felt there was a need to be consistent and trying to provide that level of support. But to your point, yes, it does impact our staffing levels, and it does impact timelines, and something has to get dropped on the priority list. For example, general inquiries would get pushed a little back a little bit later because we're providing that support.
Warden?
Thank you. So again, not to be putting you or your director on the spot, I mean, I'm just mentioning, I think we need to realize that when we do this, especially now, and I know that we have helped other municipalities in the past, but I'm wondering whether the conditions that our department was facing at that time may be a little bit different than the conditions that we're facing now. So I just think that it has to be said that we are going to now be putting our planning department back behind the 8 ball a little bit longer when we start helping out another municipality.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you, Chair. I concur with the warden, but I'm wondering, Bruce, it said for 8 weeks. Can you or they say we're closed for a week and we do it for 1 or 2 days, like a Monday or Friday, rather than the total 8 weeks?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Lynch. We are providing a limited service to them, so we did not agree to take on the full responsibility of the planning position. The discussions that we have had with the township were that we would be providing the notices only to meet their legislative timelines. So, for example, under the Planning Act, you have certain days to deem an application complete, then you have certain days to provide notices. And so we agreed to provide them the support to be able to meet their legislative timelines under the Planning Act for those processes, but not to go as so far as to providing those planning reports or processing the zoning bylaw amendments themselves. For the consent applications, they were a little bit different. So we are preparing the planning reports for 2 consent applications. One of them was a resubmission from a county approval back in 2019. So this was an application that the county had already processed and it had lapsed. And so we already had all the background information. So for that application, as an example, it was not as onerous of a job as starting an application from new. So we're not replacing the planner by any means or the tasks that they are doing. So the planner will have when he does return for Whitewater Region, he will have a large to-do list, but we're trying to do our best to keep Whitewater on track so that they can meet some of those legislative timelines for notices.
Thank you. CEO.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. The challenge is, and I go back to the warden's earlier comments, our challenge, I think, is it's the imperative here is to get the staffing resources in place that we need to deal with these periodic situations that come up, because they're not going to go away. They're going to continue to come up. And, we're all facing staffing challenges at the local level and at the county level. So we need to look at those staffing resources. And I think the warden was bang on in her earlier comments about let's get rolling on this and make it a priority so we can support our local municipalities. Because I know from past experience that, if we don't provide the support to the local municipalities, it creates an application bottleneck elsewhere in the system. So we may not be the problem, but now it's happening at the local municipality. So it just creates a problem that we're going to deal with an upset or concerned developer or applicant elsewhere. And eventually, it always becomes back to us to a certain degree, and we need to address it. So the problem is staffing resources, and it's been recognized today, and I think the director and the manager have made the commitment to bring something forward. So thank you for that, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Warden?
Thank you, Chair. My last comment is, I'd be saying this whether or not it was Whitewater Regional or Ensign Valley, so that Councillor Rager knows that. And the other thing too is, I mean, we've just spent the past year going with myself and a number of the senior leadership team to all the municipalities, talking about the service improvements that were happening here, and in particular highlighting our planning department and our human resources department. So again, I recognize that there is a need to assist our other municipalities, and I'm supportive of that, but I really still think it has to be noted that there is a price to be paid by our planning department when we do this.
Yeah, no question about that. And I think we all agree that these are challenges that are out there, challenges of trying to get individuals in seats or in environments. There's no question about that. And how do you handle that? It is very difficult. We've talked about that on all aspects of lower tier municipalities, upper tier as well. It's a challenge, and it will continue to be a challenge. But quite frankly, if we want to see growth in Renfrew County, planning, it begins with planning. And I've said before, it is a minefield. The planning and provincial policy statements and official plans and all of that sort of stuff. They need expertise, and this is where the county can certainly help. And I don't disagree with anything that's being said here, but I think there is an absolute need to take a long, hard look as fast as we can. I think we've talked about this, to address the situation as far as staffing is concerned at the planning department in order to give them the support they need to do the job that they know and they have to do, that the lower tiers are asking for work to be done. So the sooner you can get that to us, I think the better, so that we can address these shortfalls that are within the department. And we don't want to see anything delayed, I don't believe. I think that's the challenge that's out there, making it happen for all of us in the county of Renfrew. So I would be suggesting that a review as fast as we can with regards to the complement of the planning department. It would be absolutely essential as fast as we can get it done. Bearing in mind, we don't really do much in the month of July. July is just around the corner, and you talked in terms of June, but July we don't do anything. So it's in August now before maybe it could get approved. So, we're into a lame ducky type of situation as well. We've got. The sooner you can get it to us, the better. That's all I can say. And I think you know that, Mr. Director, right? Okay, there you go. Good discussion there. Dan, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, because I'm not an expertise on the planning, but we do have other planners within the county, i.e. Arnprior. Can they be liaised with to do your notice of the event? I know in Arnprior we've got these things posted all over for the severances, for the lot line extensions and all that good stuff that our planning puts out through our secretary. So I'm curious if you've reached out to our planner in Arnprior to say, hey, can you give us a hand for something that can take away from the county? And again, I'm not into the planning world. Thank you.
I'll hand that over to the guys to my left. It's an interesting concept. Bruce.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Lynch. At this point, no, we have not reached out to any other local municipalities looking to share services or initiate any of those types of discussions.
Dan.
Thank you, Chair. No, I wasn't asking the county to ask. I was asking the municipality for Whitewater to contact Arnprior, bypassing the county, to say, hey, you got a planner, ours is going on lead, can you give us a hand to do this?
Yeah.
Bruce.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I misunderstood the question, Councillor Lynch. And yes, my understanding is that yes, Whitewater did do that. They did reach out to a number of the area municipalities that had planning staff to discuss a shared job there, or reaching out to them to do that role.
Oops, thank you. So further on 7, then let's try number 8. Any comments on 8? Then the other one then we'll go to is resolutions. Number 9. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. This is a proposed resolution regarding Bill 109, which was just introduced on March 30th. Perhaps I'll start with the recommendation, then provide a little bit of the background. So the recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee recommend that County Council authorize the Warden to send a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing in response to Bill 109 that addresses 1. Concern regarding municipalities' ability to achieve the proposed timelines without penalty. 2. The need for increased funding resources to assist with the need to add staff capacity to meet the new approval timelines. 3. Clarity on timelines for agency feedback and concurrent provincial approvals. And 4. Increased resources to encourage post-secondary students to pursue career in municipal planning. So for a little bit of the background information, so I think there's been a lot of news recently in the paper and social media, wherever you look, even at the council table, we're talking about a lot about the availability of homes, and especially with regards to affordable housing. And it's very high on the province's to-do list is to encourage more homes within the province. And so they introduced this bill on March 30th, which I'll just read the first paragraph there. According to their press release, it says, this bill intends to support a plan to crack down on speculators who are driving up the cost of housing projects, protects home buyers from predatory development practices, and creates more housing options for homeowners and renters by accelerating development timelines to get more homes built faster. So contained in the report are a number of bullet points and items that this bill proposes to do, and then at the end of the report, we do have some of the staff comments and some of our reactions as staff to the bill. Just some of the highlights that we wanted to bring to committee's attention as they would affect the planning department. The first one is related to the timelines for official plan, zoning, and site plan approvals. So the proposal that Bill 109 has is that municipalities that do not process these site plan applications, zoning amendments, and official plan applications within legislated timelines will need to gradually refund the application fees. And that's starting after 60 days. So if a municipality does not process these applications to approval within 60 days, there would be a refund that starts at 50%, and then gradually on, I think if it's within 120 days, of no decision, that the developer or that person who submitted that application would receive a complete 100% refund. There's also a proposal to create a new community infrastructure and housing accelerator, and the ministry says that this is a new tool to help accelerate the municipal planning process. This would operate, I think, very similarly to the current minister's zoning order, except under a different sort of framework. In this case, this is where a municipality may have a particular project that they want to get approval for, whether it's a housing development or it could be for a community facility. And the municipality would have to approach the minister for permission to use this tool. And what this tool would ultimately allow a municipality to do is to not follow the policies or give them an exemption from the policies of the provincial policy statement and the official plan. So you could just skip over sort of those review processes and move forward with the proposed applications. And the very last one that we just mentioned on the report here is regarding the use of surety bonds. Most planning agreements, whether you're doing like a plan of subdivision application or a site plan, whenever there's the proposal to build usually municipal infrastructure, whether it's a road or water or sewer, municipalities require securities, typically in the amount of 100%, to make sure that the infrastructure that ultimately the municipality is going to be required to take over is going to be built to a standard that's acceptable. And those securities are there to make sure that if the developer for some reason walks away from the project, that the municipality has the money to go in and complete that project. Surety bonds and so the developer, obviously those securities tie up a lot of capital for the developer as they're going through that process. And was essentially what a surety bond is, allows a third party to intervene or provide that agreement that they would pay in the event of a default, or in case those funds are needed, that a third party would be involved with that financing component, and that ultimately would free up capital of that developer so that they could go on and proceed with a different project without having all their money tied up providing securities. At the bottom of the report, starting on page 48, are some of the staff comments with regards to these proposed changes. So again, going back to the committee last month of March, the county commented on the 55 recommendations that were provided for the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force. And one of those action items was action item number 22, I wanted to bring to your attention. And this was a recommendation of the task force to simplify planning legislation and policy documents. And the county response at that time agreed with this recommendation. In our opinion, this introduced legislation does the opposite. It adds to the complexity of the Ontario Planning Act, and it doesn't really address any of the issues that are creating the long development times in Ontario. In simple terms, we're saying we view this bill as saying, municipalities, do it faster, do your approvals faster, roll faster, or else we're going to penalize you. But the proposed bill doesn't provide any actual tools or resources or any of the processes to improve. And for example, this proposed community infrastructure and housing accelerator. This appears to be, again, a way of allowing municipalities to circumvent the development policies that are contained in the PPS, the provincial policy statement, and within official plans. So in our view, if the province views these policies as limiting or slowing down the development proposal, a more appropriate or reasonable approach or long-term solution would be to change those policies that are creating that delay, as opposed to creating a complicated process to get around those policies. With regards to the review of site plan, zoning bylaws, and official plan amendments, these are processes that have become more complicated over the past few decades. And each of these processes review a circulation to a wide variety of agencies and utility providers, such as school boards, gas, hydro, land registry system, provincial ministries, First Nations consultation. And the information package that was submitted looked at approval times in the greater Golden Horseshoe area. And it said on average these processes are taking between 12 and 30 months currently, and the province would like them done within 60 days. So that's a significant change. So essentially, we're saying do it 90% faster, but we're not going to change any of the processes or all the other people you're required to accommodate, or all the other agencies you're required to accommodate. They're not affected, but municipalities do it 90% faster, or else you don't get to collect your development application fees. And lastly, the Planning Act has been referred to sometimes as a piece of legislation that's like a patch in a patch. It's just sort of been amended over time, and there hasn't been a full review of exactly of the entire Planning Act and the planning process in Ontario for quite some time. And so in our opinion, it's time, and I think that's what we stated also in on our recommendations to the Affordable Housing Task Force, that to really solve some of the problems that are occurring in the overall development industry, or some of these timelines and delays that are occurring, it's time to look at the overall development process and look at, instead of putting another patch on the Planning Act, it's time to look at renewing it and improving these processes right from the ground root, from the root level. And lastly, we've discussed it a little bit here today already. So throughout Ontario, there's already a shortage of staff in nearly every aspect of the development review process. And this is whether it's at a provincial ministry, whether you're at MTO, or looking at getting comments from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, whether you need an engineer, a surveyor, a biologist, or an architect, or a planner. Currently on the Ontario Professional Planning Institute website, there are more job postings available for planners across Ontario than at any time in recent memory. If the province implements these proposed changes, it's going to increase the planning staff needs for every municipality across Ontario. Especially in Ontario, in rural Ontario, where there's already a difficulty to attract staff, this is going to exacerbate that task. And so to meet the expanding need for planners, it's recommended that the province undertake a program to encourage more post-secondary students to pursue a career in planning. Thank you very much, Chair. That is the resolution.
Okay. Comments? Great.
I'll just add, and thanks, Bruce, that was a really good report. It's interesting watching the chronology and the timeline of this. So I think the minister came and made this report, or this announcement, on March 31st. It hit the floor on April the 4th. They discussed it yesterday in the legislature. What's the date? Today's the 12th. Yesterday was the 11th. Tomorrow it's at standing committee, or it's currently at standing committee. Tomorrow is the clause by clause consideration, and the comments are due back to the province by April the 29th. So the province means business, but it's rolling so fast that we can barely get our thoughts into this. And thanks to Bruce for putting this report together. But the response back is just as short to get these back, and I don't know how many municipalities will respond, but the minister means business, the minister in the province means business, but I think your voices are very important to this, and hopefully they'll be heard, is that while the tools are there, are they the right tools, and how can we affect them with the current capacity we have, especially, and watching that go forward would be very interesting. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Comments? Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And through you to Mr. Howard, it was a great report. I think the response of the province, it was foreseen. The composition of their task force did not have a municipal planner on it. They didn't have municipal representatives, and they consulted only at the last minute with the municipal sector. And I'm not sure, I don't recall if they met with municipal land use planners, the association. I don't recall. I suspect they didn't. And when you compose a task force that's people who have financial background or are tied to the real estate industry, you're going to get this kind of report. So it's very disappointing. And I hope the minister takes the comments to heart. It's especially grievous, the penalty that they're trying to impose, where you refund some of the fees, knowing full well, they've been told repeatedly that even the 60-day mark is undoable for a lot of smaller municipalities, and even the larger ones across Ontario. So I think that's a deliberate red flag for people. And it's possible the government's setting themselves up to run against municipalities during the election. I'm not sure. However, I should note one of the things they could have added was a section in there where it's like playing competitive chess, where you make your move, and if somebody, you tap the clock. There should be a means of municipality getting back to the minister to say, look, you need to stop the clock or reset it because we can't get this done in time. And also, the fines or refunds should be equally applied. It should be applied to the developer and some of the developer's consultants. I think we've all sat in meetings where we've gone in with our planners, and the proponent is there and their consultants, and then it becomes a dueling email. Well, I sent you this request April 3rd. Oh, I didn't see that. Well, here it is. You replied, or I put read on it, so I know you got it. How come you didn't do anything about it? And then you have the proponent turning to the consultant and reaming them out, and then a promise of more information. So I think this is a very unfair piece of legislation, and is deliberately set up to cast the blame to municipalities. I think also there should be some kind of a penalty if the ministries don't meet the timelines. That's been something we've been talking about on a fairly regular basis, and it's quite disappointing that the minister and the government didn't hear that. And I would hope that we can stress, if there's a cover letter going with this, that we stress a couple of those things rather strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Further, Sheldon, then Jeb.
Yeah, and I guess I just have to kind of echo, maybe in fewer words than Peter's, but thanks to Bruce for explaining this to us sometime, this Bill 109. Sometimes I read through this and it takes me a couple times to understand it. And put it in a few words, I guess if you're looking at the provincial government, I'll give them an E for effort, but an F for failures as far as their part to do the research. So,
Thank you, Sheldon. Jeb.
And I agree with Sheldon's comments also. It's obviously that it's one of those things where the further ahead you go, the behinder you get. we're, we've been in a situation lately where we're trying to get things done better, faster, cheaper, and then they throw this on top of us, and it's certainly not better. It sounds better, and it's not going to be faster, and I don't think it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper. So I certainly support the recommendation of sending a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Thank you.
Father. Oh, I can't see Warden. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much, Chair. And through you to Bruce, an exceptional report once again. You keep upping your game every time you provide us with a report, so I don't know where that's how it's going to lead. I really look forward to writing this letter. When you go through the bill, it's basically been the municipality's fault all along, but things haven't been moving forward. So I look forward to being able to write a letter that I'm able to maybe suggest ways that the province can improve things as well. The question I have for you, however, is item number 4, increased resources to encourage post-secondary students to pursue a career in municipal planning. What do you have in mind in that respect?
Through you, Chair, to the Warden. So this is something that we've seen, I'll say, based on conversations with my colleagues across Ontario as well, talking to other planners across the counties, and we are all having, I think it's across rural Ontario especially, a real hard time finding staff to fill vacant positions, whether it's new positions or filling positions that have been left because of retirement from the baby boomer generation that we've seen coming. So there's a shortage of availability of planning staff across the board, and I think this is also felt, by talking to the consultants in our area as well, that they are also feeling this. It's not just municipalities who are feeling the boom of development, and it's also hitting our local consultants, and they're also looking for planners to do the work there. And when you add it all up, if every municipality is looking for planners, all the consultants are looking for planners, it's going to create a real competition for them, and the best way to solve it is by creating additional places. So whether there's any incentive program or, I remember back when I was in high school, the University of Waterloo came up with, the reason why I chose planning was University of Waterloo came along and you did a little presentation at our high school through the guidance counselor and said, here's our planning school that the Waterloo offers. So I'm not sure if there's other programs that the province can initialize or take advantage of to try to encourage students coming out of high school to look at planning as a career option.
If I may, Chair?
Sure.
I absolutely agree that there's an issue of available bodies to do this work. If you don't have to do it for me this minute, but if you have some just suggestions as actually what they could do, I think that is very beneficial. Whether or not it's incentives, I don't know if there is ways of increasing the number of spots in planning programs. But just if we're able to not just identify the issue, but possible solutions would be helpful as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Warden. Oops, who is Dan?
Thank you, Chair. To the Warden's comments, in the last correspondence package, I believe the province of Ontario is giving, I'll go out on a limb and say 10,000 electricians free tuition courses to be available to be hired by the companies that need electricians. So if they can do that for electricians, why can't they do it for planners? Thanks.
Father, whoops. Great.
Thanks, Chair, and through you to committee. Yeah, no, I think it's an ongoing issue. I think many of your municipalities have witnessed building inspectors, building officials disappear and trying to recruit those. And it's not a matter of just a compensation anymore. It's just a matter of finding those bodies. So like all trades, if planning, building officials were treated as a trade, if you will, and just more education on the path and the pathway as a career. I think that our youth don't necessarily know that it's out there as a good career to have, and has been held by people in positions for decades, and now that gray wave is happening, and now these vacant jobs are open. So thankfully, Laura and Alex recognized that and went into planning in the early years. But as a further comment, I'm reading through the EBR posting that was just posted today for comments. And when they talk about the analysis of the impact, I think it was $776 is what the province is suggesting all these changes will actually cost us as one of 444 municipalities. Well, you know, a couple hours of overtime and even recruiting certainly surpasses $776 for one single file. So I'm not really sure that our friends of the province respectfully are getting these numbers from, but perhaps we will formulate that response back to you, Warden, under your pen.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's an interesting report, and thanks again, Bruce, for bringing it together, and it certainly highlights and makes it very crystal clear some of the challenges that are out there. Let me just say, I know, frankly, how hard our planning department works to try and move these files ahead. Not only at this level, but I have planners myself at my lower tier municipality, and they work very hard, extremely hard, to try and satisfy these developers and entrepreneurs that are out there. And to throw this on top of that and put the pressure on top of that, I think is just a little bit much. I don't know whether there's a lot of consultation with us on this or not, but I don't disagree with what the warden is saying. I can tell you one of the strengths of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus way back when I sat there was not only did we take a piece of legislation and say, this is wrong, this is not working, we didn't stop there. We offered suggestions, and it was always received very, very well by the province. And I think that's what you're suggesting here. That was the genesis of the Wardens Caucus. We complained, we just didn't stop there. We offered suggestions to make it better, and that's why we were readily accepted by the province of Ontario. And I think the warden's on the right track as far as that is concerned. But like I said, to throw additional pressures on the planning group, I think is wrong at this point in time. I can tell you what we are doing in Petawawa. We do not have building inspectors. We contract that out to a company in Kitchener because we just can't get building inspectors. And we're a very, very busy municipality. We just can't get building people. And so we've got companies and we're looking more and more and more in that on a contract situation to try and get individuals in and companies in who specialize that in these disciplines to help through this, because the folks are just not out there to assist to get this done. So, you know, this is very difficult on small organizations, and I don't consider us small, but we're smaller than, say, Toronto or wherever, who have adequate staff or can get adequate staff. This is an additional burden, I think, on not only our staff here, as far as the planning, as I've said, do a stellar job, but on all the lower tier municipalities as well. So we have to push back heavily on this, and I think through the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and a letter, et cetera, I think will certainly help to clarify some of the positions that we need to have a stance on. With that, there was a resolution presented. I don't think we have a mover and second for that, Evelyn, do we? No, we don't. So moved by Jeb, seconded by Kathy, that we accept the resolution under item number 9. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, item number 10. Bruce, I believe.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the last item on my report. It is a bylaw, and much like how Bill 109 will have an impact on Director Kelly's first information item on the review of staffing capacities for the development, Bill 109, and will have an impact on that. This item number 10, this delegation of approval bylaw, is also related to staffing capacity. So this is related to planning service agreements, and perhaps I'll read the recommendation first and then provide some of the background information. So the recommendation is, whereas the county provides planning services to 12 local municipalities regarding local approvals and processes, And whereas in September 2021, County Council directed staff to circulate local municipalities a service agreement with respect to local planning services. And whereas these agreements provide stability and predictability to the planning services that the county provides to local municipalities. Now therefore, it is recommended that the Development and Property Committee recommend that a bylaw be passed delegating authority to the Director of Development and Property to enter the planning service agreements with local municipalities, and further that staff be directed to correspond with local municipalities for which the county provides local planning services that have not yet signed a planning services agreement. So the background is, again, back in September, County Council directed that we approach local municipalities to enter into these planning service agreements, which followed the recommendations contained in the planning strategy review. And again, this draft agreement and an invitation was sent to all local municipalities, and these agreements are intended to provide a formality, a stability, and a predictability so that at the county level we can manage our resources effectively and efficiently, and we want to make sure that when we enter into these agreements with the local municipality that we have the resources to provide that service that they need and are expecting from us. Again, due to an unprecedented year in the number of submitted applications, combined with being understaffed last year, the timelines for processing applications have been impacted, and we've had to prioritize as a division different of our approval authority, approval processes. We've prioritized plans of subdivisions, zoning bylaw amendments, and official plan amendments, so there are no delays for these applications, and that's also in recognition of like the legislative timelines that we're obliged to meet for those processes. And it was estimated for 2021 that more than 50% of staff time at the county level is spent on processing planning applications or planning approvals on behalf of local municipalities. And so the lowest priority that were received were general inquiries, and then above that were the consent files, which are county processes. So as a result of us prioritizing local approvals and plans of subdivisions, we do have a backlog of some of these county processes. So to date, planning staff have met with most municipalities to discuss these agreements, but as of right now, the only municipalities that have approved the planning services agreement are the townships of Bonnechere Valley and the township of Killuhagee-Richards. And the proposed bylaw that is attached would allow the Director of Development and Property to sign and enter into these agreements once the municipality has agreed to it. As we were discussing under the Bill 109, the province is proposing to shift approval timelines, and this will impact county staff's ability to provide timely and efficient services to local municipalities. And so to be able to make sure that we're able to address and analyze our staffing capacity, the county needs to know and estimate our anticipated workload. So without understanding the long-term predicted workload for these local municipalities that we provide the service to, we can't address our county capacity issues without these agreements. So it's recommended that the local municipality, it is recommended that the local municipalities that utilize county planning services for their local approvals again be approached to enter into these service agreements as directed by County Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Open it up for discussion. Seeing none? Everybody's happy? Okay. Then I need a motion to accept the recommendation. Sheldon and Dan? No discussion? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. That was a pretty comprehensive report that you had there today. Thank you for that. Okay, I need a motion to accept the report as a whole. Jeb and Kathy, all in favor? It is carried. New business, anything for new? Craig.
Thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to introduce you to a familiar face and a new face around this room. I'd like to welcome Tina Poplinski, who's now our new media coordinator with the media relations coordinator at the media relations officer. There's so many different titles around here, Tina. There you go. Thanks, Tina. So Tina, this is her second day and probably your second committee, so I thought you'd all like to say hi and welcome to Tina. Tina comes to us from the Pembroke Observer after a very storied career as a journalist. All puns intended. And we're very happy to have Tina with us, and I think she'll be a great asset as we move forward, as we communicate our message to the lower tiers and to all the public out there. So Tina, if you want to say welcome to this committee, there you are.
Hello, everyone. I've sat in the background, as you all know, but it's nice to address everyone here at the Development and Property Committee. I look forward to working with you, and as Craig said, sort of getting the message of the county out to everyone that should hear it. So the announcement, I believe, is going out today about my hiring, and I'm getting ready to send my first release about the spongy moth, so look for that.
I thought I recognized you when you come in. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the team. It's great to have you here, Tina. As Craig has alluded to, you'll be a great asset to our organization. Look forward to working with you as you go forward with all the press releases and stuff like that. So good for you, and I'm glad to see you on board here. So thank you. Further new business. Nothing for closed? And I need a motion to adjourn, please. Oh, Peter, we'll get him on the agenda. There's Peter and Sheldon. All in favor? It is carried. Thank you very much.